The Galar region has descended into chaos. Pokemon are Dynamaxing across the entire region. Men and women dressed in black with red R's are terrorizing the people of Winden, keeping anyone inside the stadium from leaving. What's more, there's something ominous lingering over Hammerlock Stadium. Ash gets up from the ground, only to notice that Mewtwo and Giovanni are gone. He doesn't have time to react to that, though, as he can already hear the cries of the nearby people. He races off the battlefield in desperate search for his friends and family. When he finally gets to the stands where everyone is seated, he's truly able to see the problem. Pokemon under the command of Team Rocket are corralling people like livestock, preventing them from being able to fight back. What's worse was that none of the Macrocosmos staff seemed to be there to help out these people. Ash reaches back for one of his Pokemon, only to remember the devastation Giovanni had done to his team. Everyone was already in pretty bad shape. He couldn't force them to battle any more than this. He had to find Pikachu. Once he had Pikachu back by his side, then he'd be able to fight back. As he does his best to get past the grunts without causing too much trouble, he calls out for Pikachu. Soon, he sees a thunderbolt strike in the distance, and heads in that direction. A group of grunts get in the way, sending out their Pokemon to stop Ash. Before Ash even has a chance to think about what he should do, an Air Slash and Scale Shot fly past him, instantly defeating the grunts. Ash turns to see Leon and Cynthia with their ace Pokemon at their sides. He thanks them, before stating that he needs to get to Pikachu. Leon is already way ahead of him on that, telling him to jump on Charizard's back. Ash does so, and the current strongest Pokemon in the world races over to where the Thunderbolt came from. Ash finds his friends surrounded by Team Rocket grunts. Those with smaller Pokemon attempt to fight back, but with the seating in the way, it makes it difficult to do so. Leon's Charizard doesn't stop to think, acting on instinct and blowing away the grunts with an ancient power. Ash's mother gives him a hug, as Pikachu jumps onto Ash's shoulder. He asks everyone if they're alright, and Ash is informed that they're all okay, though everyone else in the stadium is sure to be in trouble. They can't just sit back and do nothing about it. Leon and Cynthia finally make it there, with Officer Jenny approaching as well. Jenny states that she's already managed to get into contact with the Winden police, but with how much commotion is happening outside of the stadium, there is a struggle to get back up here. Leon asks if she's heard anything about the gym leaders, but Jenny has to disappoint everyone with the notion that the Galar gym leaders are reported to already have their hands full with the rampaging Dynamax Pokemon in their areas. Not only that, but there were reports of something flying above Hammerlock Stadium. Sonia looks at the Galar particles reading, and notes that the numbers are far higher than ever before. It was as if the darkest day was happening all over again. Suddenly, Leon realizes what this is. He states that Chairman Rose had a plan. He didn't have all the details, but he was informed of Project Eternal, and that it had something to do with the darkest day. He wasn't too keen on the idea personally, and was going to speak with Rose more. It seemed that the project had already begun, however. Sonia asks if that means Chairman Rose had caused this, but immediately Ash states that this can't be true. From what he could tell by his interaction with Giovanni, this was the Rocket Boss's doing. Unfortunately, it seems Giovanni had escaped. Sonia states that if the Darkest Day was truly released on Galar once again, then they'll need the help of the region's heroes. Leon states how that's impossible, as the descendants of the heroes barely do anything for the region other than show up at banquets made to honor them. He wouldn't be surprised if they saw the news coverage over what was currently happening and were actively choosing to ignore it. Sonia immediately debunks the idea of contacting them in the first place, stating that they were going to get the real heroes, the ones from the statues that were revealed to be behind the Stow-on-Side mural. The same ones that, based on what Ash and Goh went there, were living within the Slumbering Wield. Leon says that she can't possibly be thinking of going there by herself. The last time she did, she was bedridden for weeks. Goh then speaks up, saying that he'll go with her. He might not be much of a trainer either, but he has had at least some experience. And it wouldn't hurt for someone who's seen one of the legends in person to go with her. So that settled it. The only difficulty was figuring out how they'd get out of there. They had 4 members of the Masters 8 together in this one place, and the remaining members were still somewhere in the stadium. However, even if the group was able to make their way out, there was still the matter of innocent civilians being attacked by rocket goons. Ultimately, Leon makes a decision, telling Cynthia, Ash, and Iris to go find the rest of the Masters 8. They'll clear a path for them to head to Hammerlock. He'll stay to fight against the rocket grunts. That way, the people within the stadium and living in Winden as a whole will eventually be safe. However, Sonia argues against this, saying that Leon needs to go with the remaining Masters 8 to Hammerlock. Leon tries to rebut this, saying that he can't just leave the people of Winden unprotected. But then he's directed to the rest of Ash's friends. Each of them exclaim that they'll be able to hold off Team Rocket. After all, they'd done so before. Officer Jenny states that he won't have to worry. She's sure that backup will arrive as soon as possible. And until then, there are plenty of people here who can hold their own. Leon looks to Hop, the most worried about what could happen to his little brother. He then sighs, before telling Officer Jenny to watch after him. Before they begin their plan, Ash leaves Squirtle with Jenny, figuring that the Squirtle Squad will need their leader. Then, they begin their plan to break out of there. The entire group uses their Pokemon to break through the grunts. Not wanting the Masters 8 to use too much energy, Ash's friends take most of the battling for themselves. Working together, they manage to take out the grunts, keeping them from getting out of the viewing area. Once those grunts are taken care of, Silent, Clement, and Kiawe stay behind, acting as guards to stop any more grunts that may try to block off this new exit. They promise to make sure everyone will be able to get out safely. And then, the group breaks. Little do they realize, the Rocket Trio is watching them from afar, still in their radio host outfits. Once they've cleared a path to the main lobby, Mallow, Lana, and Sophocles stay behind as a secondary checkpoint. Kukui tells them to be safe before they head to the main doors. As soon as they get to the doors, a group of grunts gets in their way. Instinctively, Ash and Leon are about to attack, but Brock and Misty beat them to it, sending out their ace monsters and blowing the grunts away with tandem Mega Evolution power. Both then tell the rest of the group to keep going, as they'll be the ones to guard the entrance. Kukui also agrees to guard with them, stating that this will allow him to stay close to his class. Misty and Brock appreciate the additional support, especially from one of the strongest trainers in Alola. The group gets outside, only to see several grunts harassing people all over the city. The group fully splits from here, Ash and Leon hopping on the back of Charizard, with Cynthia following behind on Garchomp and Iris on Dragonite. Just before they leave, Ash hears the call of Galarian Farfetch'd. The wild duck leaves Ash's mother's side, requesting to come with Ash. Ash smiles, before scooping the duck up into his arms, as he and Leon take off. Sonia and Goh then hop on Sonia's Corviknight, getting ready to fly in the direction of the Slumbering Wield. Goh looks back, locking eyes with everyone. Gary Oak gives him a thumbs up, reassuring him that everyone will be able to handle things here. Goh smiles, before wishing everyone luck as they take off. An attack comes flying in, but Serena's Absol and May's Blaziken both block the attack, before telling Sonia and Goh to get out of there as fast as they can. They then turn, locking eyes with Pierce, elite officer of Team Rocket. He commands a Sigilif to attack, while the two coordinators Mega Evolve their Pokemon. The remainders in the group choose to head towards the Pokemon Center, figuring that would be the safest place of refuge for anyone who can't battle. On the way over, Gozu of the Matori Matrix attempts to stop them. His Mega Aggron goes flying in, but Gladion stops it with Zoroark. He tells everyone to go on ahead, but Lily stays with him. She tells him that she's not leaving him behind. Despite not wanting his sister to get hurt, he still trusts her, so the two face off against Gozu. The rest of the group makes it to the Pokemon Center, with Gary being one to clear the place of grunts. Everyone gets inside, taking it as a temporary refuge, while Officer Jenny tries to work out a way to move people to a safer location, such as Spikemouth. Hop asks if there's anything that he can do. Officer Jenny tells him that Leon wanted him to stay safe, so she can't let him run off on his own. However, he can help the Pokemon Center by keeping it safe. Hop agrees, bringing out Wooloo. He groups up with Tracy, and the two work to make sure those who are staying inside are okay. Peony looks out the window. He sees the Galar region in chaos. He can make out the shape of a Metagross and a Gyarados flying off, assuming that to be the final two members of the Masters 8. He thinks about the man whose plan caused this, and clenches his fist. A voice from behind asks if he's frustrated. Surprised, Peony turns to find Chloe standing there. He nods, stating that he hasn't felt this helpless since he was a little kid. He knows he can do something about this situation, but he can't leave Peonia. He's left his family before, and he doesn't want to make that same mistake again. Still, as a trainer of Galar, he can't bear to see the region like this. Chloe understands, looking to her own family. She can see some similarities between her own father and Peony. She then turns, telling Peony that he's a good dad, caring about his daughter so much. However, Peonia can also take care of herself, and there are others here for her too. If Peony feels like he shouldn't hide here in the Pokemon Center, then he doesn't have to. Peony seems uncertain, but ultimately, he decides that the best way to protect his daughter is to go out and do what he needs to do. He looks to Officer Jenny, asking her to watch over Peonia. She agrees, and Peony heads out. As he leaves, Gary follows behind, stating that he's coming with. Peony smiles, thanking him, as he and Gary get on the back of Aerodactyl. He pulls out a photo. It's of him and a very young Peonia. He smiles, before promising that he'll keep her safe. Then, as they fly, he pulls out his phone, contacting the other members of Project Mew. Goh and Sonia arrive in Postwick. The two of them waste no time, heading to the outskirts and into the foggy forest. The fog makes it difficult to navigate, but the two press on. Unfortunately, the longer they search, the more difficult it seems to get. Goh tries to think. What made the two heroes appear last time they were here? The fog had become thicker, and that's when they met them. Maybe that's what they needed. He informs Sonia, and the two decide to head deeper into the Slumbering Wield. The Master's 8 arrive in Hammerlock, only to see just as much chaos as in Wyndon. In the center of it all is Hammerlock Stadium. They all land, seeing Raihan out front battling. Duraludon fights against Cantonian Weezing and Nidoking. Before they can say anything to the former member of their ranks, Raihan just tells them to go inside. Chairman Rose was already there. Leon thanks his rival, and the group of 6 head in. At the same time, the Wyndon Pokemon Center is beginning to fill up with more and more people. Hop, Tracy, and Chloe's mother all make sure everyone is comfortable, while Nurse Joy works to take care of the injured. Chloe overhears a mother stating she lost her child along the way. Officer Jenny says that she'll go look for the boy, but Dawn stops her. Dawn states that the people need Officer Jenny here, and if backup were to arrive, Officer Jenny would need to be here to fill them in. Dawn offers to go instead, and Officer Jenny decides to allow it, under the condition that they take Growlithe with them. Dawn agrees, but as she and Growlithe begin to leave, Chloe asks if she can come with. Dawn smiles, saying she'd be happy to have her. Chloe looks to her parents, who also nod with permission, so the two head off on the search. The two of them travel through the destruction, finding the boy hiding underneath a park bench not too far from the stadium. While they convince the young boy to come with them, they don't realize Midori and the other members of her Matrix are approaching. She orders them to attack, and the two grunts send out Toxicroak and Skuntank. The two poison types are all about to attack, when suddenly a Fire Blast and an Aura Wheel knock them away. Dawn and Chloe turn, noticing Team Rocket. But who are the ones that defended them? Midori turns, and immediately recognizes the trio in their own way. A magenta-haired woman and her Sandaconda, as well as a lavender-haired man in his Galarian Weezing and Morpeko. Midori grits her teeth, denouncing those idiots as traitors to Team Rocket. Jesse says that may be the case, but even if they sided with the boss after everything he'd done to Rillaboom, she's been wanting an excuse to wipe that haughty expression of hers out for a while now. James nods, before telling Chloe and Dawn to get out of there. The two agree, taking the young boy with them. Midori snaps her fingers, ordering her subordinates to follow, before choosing to deal with the trio herself. She sends out her Alolan Persian and Miss Magius. The formerly Rocket trio each smile, telling her to prepare for trouble, and make it double. Back in Hammerlock, the Master's 8 members enter, finding the door leading to the power plant to be open. The group all head down, finding a large, empty shell and the legend plate within. Cynthia is the one to point out what the legend plate is, wondering how Macrocosmos got a hold of something like it. From behind, they hear Chairman Rose state that he had connections in the Sinnoh region who got it for him. They all turn, seeing the chairman approaching. Leon asks how they stop it, but Rose states that it's already too late. His plan has already been put into motion. Lance argues against this, saying that they can still stop Giovanni's plans. Suddenly, Chairman Rose begins to smirk.
No, this darkest day was my idea. I told you before, didn't I, Leon? I needed a way to ensure Galar's prosperity, and as soon as I found out that our expansion would ultimately send us back to the Dark Ages, I knew I had to do something. I spent years researching Galar particles, alongside Professor Mongolia. I wasn't sure how, but I knew they were key to ensure our region's future. It was then I discovered a legendary Pokemon, seemingly not from this world. Further research allowed me to find that this being was the direct source of Galar particles, and the Dynamax phenomenon as a whole. I knew with its help, Galar could prosper. However, if I were going to capture a beast of this magnitude, I was going to need help. Thankfully, I heard of a man who had the resources I needed, so eventually met and we formed a partnership. The deal closer being the price of one small Pokemon. One small Pokemon to ensure our region's future. Of course, when getting into bed with such a well-known criminal, some people won't agree, such as Professor Mongolia, who left the project shortly after the deal was struck. However, her research and that of her granddaughters, they were both all still within my reach. As for the Galar particles, all I needed was the assistance of a young trainer so desperate to prove himself to me that he would do anything I said. And once we found the Pokemon, my associate was able to subdue it. After heavy use of his and my own subordinates, eventually the Pokemon was in our possession, and I dubbed it Eternatus, as it would be the eternal energy source that would save and revolutionise the Galar region. Later we learned of the legend plate of Sinnoh myth, and how it could be used to increase Eternatus' energy output even further. All it took was pulling a few strings, but I managed to convince a well-known Sinnonian group to hand it over, after their own failure of a plan took themselves out of the picture, allowing me to continue my experiment with the legend plate in tow. Now, of course, in a project so ambitious and so detrimental to Galar's future, problems arise along the way. The boy who did whatever I said became far too ambitious in his attempts to oppress me, and ultimately did something far too reckless. If I didn't step in and get rid of him, the project would have never been able to go through. Not only that, but the experiments were beginning to have side effects. On occasion, a power spot gained too much energy at once, causing any poor Pokemon that happened to be there to be affected. Luckily, there were others around who could handle that problem for me. Ultimately, this very problem could result in the one thing I was trying so desperately to avoid, and that's the people of Galar losing their loved ones. Like I lost my own to those damn mines. However, with experimental problems and the notion that my business partner was plotting against me, it was becoming more difficult. It was then that I eventually realised none of these things were detrimental. I was looking at everything wrong. The very thing Galar needed was the darkest day. I couldn't stop Eternatus from causing it. I needed it to use its boosted power from the legend plate, scores it. If I wanted Galar to prosper, the darkest day had to happen. Of course, it will result in casualties. But ultimately, the losses of those few who unfortunately lose their lives, will lead to the welfare which will be felt throughout every generation to come, The Galar region becoming far greater than ever before. Why else did those people risk their lives in the mines during my use? Besides, if Eternatus stepped out of line, I had the strongest trainer in the world in my pocket, and I had hoped to convince the trader he grew fond of to join us as well. The two would be more than enough to rein in the beast which is Eternatus, if needed. As for my former associate, what was the harm in letting him think he was a step ahead of me? He wouldn't realise whether or not a keycard was being left for his executives to find. He wouldn't think much of his subordinates being monitored as they waited for the signal to unleash Eternatus. It was to my benefit, regardless. So let him think he was getting his way. In the end, his pride will be his downfall.
As an explosion is heard above them, the Masters 8 know something needs to be done. Steven looks back, noticing the terminal still causing the legend plate to emit energy. However, when he goes to shut it down, an escavalier floats into his way. Chairman Rose chuckles, apologizing that he can't allow them to shut it off just yet. If they were going to try, they would have to defeat him first. Of course, the more of them down here trying to stop him, the less they'll have to handle Eternatus. Ash takes things from there, having Pikachu and Farfetch'd prepare to battle, while telling everyone else to go on ahead. The Masters 8 don't want to leave him, but before Ash can fully make up his mind, someone else says that he'll take care of things from here. Standing behind Chairman Rose, just at the entrance to the room, is Peony. Rose narrows his eyes, disgusted to see him. Ash asks what Peony is doing here, to which the man states that he's come to take care of family, something he should have done long ago. They can all go ahead now. He'll be able to handle his brother. Lance is unsure that they should trust him, but Leon says it's okay. Peony's a former champion of Galar. He'll do just fine. The six masters all agree, taking off. As they round the corner, they find Oleana waiting with her Milotic. She's about to hold them off as well, but Galarian Farfetch'd immediately attacks, taking over the situation for them. It has them go on ahead, to which the group thanks the Wild Duck, with Ash stating he'll be sure to come back for it. Farfetch'd smirks, before going in to attack with another Leaf Blade. The Masters take the elevator up top. Once they're there, they race out, only to find Eternatus floating over an unconscious Mewtwo. Giovanni is nowhere to be seen. The only remainder of him is the Master Ball they assume held Mewtwo. The area is charred, in places and damaged. If Giovanni had survived an attack from Eternatus, no one would know how he escaped. Eternatus pulses with Dynamax energy. The group was going to have to use everything in their power to defeat it. So, they each send in their aces, preparing to battle. Dawn and Chloe race back to the Pokemon Center, the little boy they planned to save being right behind them. They run as fast as they can, only for a violent petal blizzard to stop them in their tracks. Leaping down from a nearby tree is Domino and her Vileplume. She states that this is Team Rocket's town now, and demands they hand over their Pokemon. Dawn turns around, only to see the two grunts that Matori sent after them have caught up. Dawn brings out her Piplup and her Typhlosion, before asking Chloe if she's with her. Chloe looks between, a little uncertain. Then she sees the kid with her. She nods, before bringing out Eevee and Yamper. The battling begins, and the Rocket members are easily outclassing Chloe. Having not been too battle experienced, Domino and the Matori Matrix members gang up on her, forcing Dawn and Growlithe to play the role of defender. Typhlosion and Piplup put in a lot of work, but they're still struggling in the face of those powerful Rocket members. Piplup tries a drill peck, but the penguin gets knocked into the ground so hard, it cracks the road beneath it. Chloe doesn't want Dawn to have to do everything herself, so she has Eevee and Yamper keep fighting. She tries to remember her battles with Lieutenant Surge and Opal. She fights harder, but the two still aren't enough. Eevee tries one final attack, her last resort, but is thrown to the ground by Toxicroak. The group seems to be done for, when someone calls for mystical fire, blowing Vileplume back. The two look over, only to see Bede and Hatterene standing nearby. Chloe's surprised to see the gym leader, thinking it would have gotten back to Ballinlay by now. But it doesn't matter. With Bede now working alongside Dawn, Chloe's given the chance to go to Eevee's side. She picks up Eevee in her arms, trying to make sure the evolution Pokemon is okay. Eevee smiles, but then looks over at the Rocket members. Chloe says that she'll get the two of them to safety, but Eevee refuses. She wants to keep fighting, despite the injuries. Chloe is about to argue, but Yamper seems the same. Then Chloe realizes she'd been told to never give up. She couldn't back out here. But what could she do? Suddenly, she notices a glow coming from the ground. Dynamax energy. She then gets an idea, and tells Eevee to use Dig. Bede and Dawn keep fighting, and things seem to be far more even. However, Domino and the Matori Matrix members don't want to give up. They push back, without caring for their Pokemon. Suddenly, Dynamax energy erupts from the ground. With a loud cry, Eevee Gigantamaxes, much to Chloe's amazement. Domino clenches her fist, annoyed by how these trainers just won't quit. Together, the group all attack, and this final takes down the Rockets once and for all. Back with the former Rocket trio, the three put everything they have into fighting Matori, but it's clear that she's no joke. Even with their determination pushing them, the trio have difficulty fighting her and Miss Magius. Still, Sandaconda and Galarian Weezing put everything into their attacks, as do Morpeko and Meowth. None of them are going to give up. They all want to win. The battle is tough, but eventually Meowth has an idea. He notices the beacons of Dynamax energy all around, and hatches a plan. He continues fighting Alolan Persian, taking a Thunderbolt attack that sends him flying. Jessie and James call out to Meowth as he crashes to the ground nearby a beam of Dynamax energy. Meowth gets up, smirking that a weak Thunderbolt like that means nothing to a Pokemon who's been shocked by the Torp's Pikachu as much as him. He then thanks Persian, stating that this was exactly what he was looking for. He then steps into the Dynamax energy, letting it envelop him. With the Dynamax energy surging through him, Meowth begins to Gigantamax. He grows bigger and longer. Jessie and James look astounded by this, but then turn back with a newfound vigor. They exclaim how they have done everything for the boss, and all they have gotten was his temporary respect in Unova. They had poured their heart and soul into Team Rocket for so long, but would just get their friends taken from them, and get pushed around by people like her. So it's finally time that they pushed back. Their Pokemon begin to attack, and much to Motori's surprise, the trio is putting up much of a fight. She's starting to get pushed back by them, but this only infuriates her. She calls for her Pokemon to destroy these worthless deserters. However, her attacks are just reflected by Wobbuffet. Meowth goes for G-Max Gold Rush, and combined with Strange Steam and Sand Tomb, Motori's Pokemon are no match. The combined attacks wipe her out of the battle. Motori stands there dumbfounded, unable to comprehend that she actually lost to the trio she saw as beneath her. Before Jessie can taunt Motori, James exclaims that Motori can consider this their resignation from Team Rocket. They're going to continue on as their own team. Jessie is surprised by these words, but she can't help but agree. They take each other's hand, before telling Motori that it was time to prepare for trouble, and make it double. They were going to blast her off at the speed of light, and tell Motori to say goodnight. With a final, booming, Meowth, that's right. A combined Aura Wheel and G-Max Gold Rush send Motori and her Pokemon flying into the stratosphere. Only a twinkle of light where she disappeared over the horizon, being the last reminder of her existence. Goh and Sonia continue their venture. As they walk, they start getting towards thicker fog. Then, they hear a howling sound. Goh recognizes this, and then tells Sonia that it's them, before running into the fog. Sonia follows after him despite having difficulty seeing. However, when they get out of the fog, they don't find the heroes. Rather, they come to some sort of shrine near a lake. The shrine is old and run down, but the entire place feels somewhat peaceful. The two get closer, with Sonia stating that this is an incredible discovery for the research on Galar's history. She couldn't believe her eyes. Goh then notices something at the center of the shrine. He runs up, seeing an altar in the center. Hanging from it is a rusted sword and shield. Suddenly, he remembers the statues. Whether the statue of the singular hero, or the statue showing the true heroes, it always showed a sword and a shield with them. Were these the very same that were wielded? He takes them, asking if these will be enough. Sonia looks at them, saying that they don't seem to be very powerful, but maybe they were here for a reason. Suddenly fog rolls in. Two howls are heard, and the two turn, seeing the heroes. The two dogs nod, showing that this is what they were meant to find, before disappearing. With this confirmation, there's no time to waste. They have to head to Hammerlock. The Six Masters battle Eternatus. The legend is very powerful, especially with the extra energy. The group works together, putting everything into their aces' attacks. Eternatus doesn't seem to be getting tired, though, and the attacks seem to be doing nothing. Leon decides it's time to Gigantamax. However, when he attempts to activate his Dynamax Band, nothing happens. What was going on? Things were Dynamaxing and Gigantamaxing all over. So why couldn't he activate his Dynamax Band? Lance and Iris try as well, but it still doesn't work. Meanwhile, as Peony and Rose battle, they eventually get to their aces. Copperajah versus Copperajah. The two attempt to activate their Dynamax bands, but they fail. Peony is confused, but Rose just chuckles, stating that perhaps the excess Dynamax energy was making it difficult to channel the proper amount to Dynamax. Though, once Eternatus was done, they should be able to figure out how to harness Dynamax again. Peony calls out his brother for being crazy, allowing something like this to continue. Rose snarls, stating that Peony wouldn't understand. When their father died, Peony chose delinquency over his family. Peony had abandoned him. Though, he had to thank him for that. If Peony was still around, he might have held him back from becoming the man he was today. The man he needed to be today. He can't change the past. Peony sighs, saying that he's probably right. He's sorry for running away. And maybe if he didn't, then Rose wouldn't have gone down the path he did. He can't change the past, but he'll make things right here and now. Rose gets serious before their two elephants clash once again. Goh and Sonia make it to Hammerlock, only to find Gary and Raihan surrounded by rocket grunts. Goh tells Sonia to take the rusted sword and shield to Ash and Leon before joining the battle, bringing out Cinderace and Urshifu. He joins them during the battling, but the grunts just keep coming. The three are outnumbered, and despite their power, they struggle to handle the wave after wave of rockets. Not only that, but some notice Sonia trying to get away, and blast her and Corviknight out of the sky. She crashes to the ground, unable to do anything. Goh sees this immediately, crying out against it. But he can't get past the grunts. There's nothing he can do. They've lost. Suddenly, he hears the calls of multiple attacks. Surging strikes, energy ball, hydro pump, and ice beam. The attacks break through, and Goh sees them all. Mustard, Tokyo, Tsurugi, and Asahi. All four of them were here. Mustard explains that he saw everything go down due to the live footage of the Masters 8. While he normally wouldn't leave the Isle of Armor, he knew he couldn't sit by while the Galar region was in danger. As for the members of Project Mew, Peony had called them, telling them to get here as soon as they could. Brandon was assisting with the evacuation efforts, making sure people got to Spikemouth safely. Goh is glad to hear this, saying that with all of them together, they were sure to beat these rocket goons. However, Mustard says no. They'll handle these goons. But Goh needs to go to the others. The battle against Eternatus continues. They clash with the monster. All 6 of them hit the cause of the darkest day as hard as they can. It finally gets to a point where they believe they just need one final push. Ash puts his Pikachu Z on his Z Power Ring, and everyone prepares their strongest attacks. Fire Blast, Earthquake, Meteor Mash, Waterfall, Giga Impact, and 10 million volt Thunderbolt. The attacks all land, and this finally makes Eternatus falter. Leon pulls out an Ultra Ball, tossing it in hopes that this will finally contain Eternatus and end the darkest day once and for all. The ball hits the ground, and they all wait in intense anticipation. It shakes once, then again, but then it stops. Suddenly, purple energy begins to envelop the ball. Leon's eyes widen. On instinct, he looks over to Ash. He and Charizard both move as fast as they can. The Ultra Ball explodes, and Dynamax energy erupts, enveloping everyone. On the ground, the group can see it, even while still fighting the rocket grunts. Eternatus goes spiraling into the sky, the eruption of energy trailing behind it. It flies high into the clouds, before becoming enveloped in the energy itself. Once again, Mustard tells Goh that he needs to leave. Goh is against this, though, stating that he can't fight whatever that thing is up there. Eventually, Mustard asks Goh why he keeps doubting himself. Has he learned nothing from his travels? Did the training he and Kubfu went through mean nothing to him? Goh is about to argue, but he finds himself speechless. Mustard tells the boy that he has so much potential that he hasn't been using. That was why he was the one with Urshifu by his side. Urshifu will see Goh through any battle, as will his other Pokemon partners. He just needs to believe in them. And himself. Goh thinks back to the training in the Isle of Armor, and the work he'd done to join Project Mew. He thinks about each of the Pokemon who had joined his team. Cinderace, Cubone, Drizzile, Grottle, Slowking, and Urshifu. They had all worked so hard. They had gotten past Mustard. They had held their own against Brandon. They had fought the Cantonian and Galarian birds of legend. And if he wanted to reach Mew, then he couldn't back down at any point. The future was in the palm of his hand. He looks to Mustard, and the old man smiles, telling him to go. Goh tells them to take care of themselves as he darts off to Sonia. As he runs, Gary calls out to him, telling Goh not to worry about them. Just show them the true power of one of Project Mew's finest. Goh races over to Sonia's side, Cinderace and Urshifu alongside him, making sure no one stands in their way. Goh crouches down, asking Sonia if she's alright. With a cough, she nods, before handing over the rusted sword and shield to him, telling him to give it everything he's got. Goh promises that he will, before he breaks his way into Hammerlock Stadium. He makes an immediate dash downstairs, causing him to almost tumble over himself. His dash took him across a hallway, which led him to see Peony and Rose as their ace elephant Pokemon continued battling. This makes him stop for a moment, but when Peony sees him, he's immediately ordered to go. Goh takes off, finding the elevator to take him up top. The elevator takes him up to the top, where he finds the aftermath. The Masters 8, Cynthia, Steven, Lance, and Iris each lay unconscious. Their strongest Pokemon laying injured beside them. There's only two who stand, Ash and Leon. Leon's clothes are tattered, but he and Charizard stand, completely shielding Ash from the blast they would have taken. Ash looks up to Leon, in a mix of confusion and worry. only to see the world champion smiling back at him. Finally, both Leon and Charizard fall, leaving Ash as the only one remaining. Goh calls out to him, running over to his side. Ash doesn't even look at him. His eyes move from Leon to become fixated on the dark sky above. Dynamax energy crackles through the sky like lightning. Dark clouds swirl before it finally descends. A long serpentine body, which coils in the air. A cage of violet spikes takes the center of the coil, with energy pulsating within. Black tendrils curl alongside the serpentine body. The head then opens like a hand, with fingers covered in black armor, spikes descending down the back of each segment. The finger-like appendages open up, revealing a pink eye within each one. The two 10-year-old boys can only look in horror. Ash's eyes widen before he states that it's hurting. Goh looks at him in confusion, to which Ash repeats, "The excessive amount of energy is hurting Eternatus. This is definitely the legend at its full power, but it won't be able to control the energy within." Goh says that if that's the case, then Ash will need this, handing him the rusted sword. Ash asks what it is, to which Goh quickly explains that it's the sword of one of the heroes of Galar. They couldn't get the heroes to be here, so they'll just have to be heroes themselves. So with that, they begin. Eternamax Eternatus attacks, but the two work together, Goh defending Ash with the rusted shield, while Ash manages to cut through the beam. Meanwhile, Pikachu, Cinderace, and Urshifu do whatever they can to attack the legend themselves. However, the difficulty is immense. Eternamax Eternatus attacks erratically. They can't predict its next move, whether it be a Max Wormwind, Max Flare, or a Max Ooze. However, when it chooses to attack with Eternabeam, Goh ends up having to leap in front of Ash in order to shield him with the rusted shield. The two are pushed back, and the rusted sword and shield begin to glow. The two of them look at each other, before charging back in. What they don't notice is that a pile of rubble begins to shake, glowing with psychic energy. Ash, Goh, and their Pokemon continue, but it doesn't seem like they're doing anything to Eternatus. Finally, Eternamax Eternatus attacks again, and neither of the two can move quick enough to guard.
Know my power!
Suddenly, a barrier of psychic energy appears around them. Both look back, seeing Mewtwo rising from the rubble it was beneath. The two look at the legend with wide eyes, before immediately realizing that they need to move. The two get out of the way, allowing Mewtwo to finally bring down the barrier without worry. Ash expresses his happiness that Mewtwo is okay, and the clone acknowledges that it doesn't have much strength left, but it was able to recover from some of its physical injuries within the span of its unconsciousness. Goh asks if that means Mewtwo will be aiding them. Mewtwo nods, stating that if this Eternatus isn't defeated, then the damage it could do to innocent Pokemon would be catastrophic. It might only start with Galar, but left unchecked, the darkest day could cover the world, he won't sit idly by, especially now that the armor and Master Ball no longer have control over him. Ash looks over, noticing the damaged Master Ball on the ground. With Giovanni gone, Mewtwo was free. But there was still more to be done before it could be truly considered as such. Ash and Goh then turn, each gripping their rusted weapons tightly. They both then raise them up, exclaiming that they'll defeat Eternatus and save the Galar region. No, they'll save the world. Suddenly, the rusted sword and shield begin to glow brighter than before. In a flash, the Galar heroes appear. They take possession of their weapons and transform. Now, crowned with their full power, Zacian and Zamazenta stand proudly next to Ash and Goh. Ash and Goh both look amazed. Before they look at each other, both smirk and nod in unison, before they exclaim that they'll give it everything they've got. With the combined power of Zacian and Zamazenta now aiding the two, they begin to do far more against Eternatus. Even when it attempts to attack Ash and Goh's Pokemon, Zamazenta is able to take the blow and defend, before Zacian counterattacks. Rose and Peony continue to clash, their ace elephants not giving up in this battle of endurance. Hammerlock Stadium begins to shake, which causes Peony to lose focus for a moment. The battle above is clearly getting intense. However, eventually Goh and Ash would run out of energy and be defeated. With the Legend Plate still emitting energy, Eternatus was never going to slow down. With Peony not focused, Rose is able to get the upper hand. His Copperajah starts beating down against Peony's. Rose then tells his brother to face the facts. Peony was just a screw-up, while he was fighting for the future of the Galar region. Peony's Copperajah is clearly getting tired. But Peony can't give up here. He has to get to that terminal. But how is he supposed to defeat his brother? He'd done it in the past once. But even then, his brother just managed to climb back to the top in another way. Not only that, but he had the drive that came from his will to save the region by any means necessary. How was he supposed to compete? He then thinks about his daughter. He takes out the picture of him and Peonia together. Everything he'd done was for her. And if he didn't do something, her future would still be in danger. He had to do something about the Legend Plate. For her sake. And by any means necessary. An idea forms in his mind, and he calls for his Copperajah to get behind Rose's. Not allowing this, Rose commands his Copperajah to use one final high horsepower. The attack lands critically, but Peony's Pokemon doesn't fight back against the hit. Trusting his trainer, Copperajah is sent flying by the immense force. By the time Rose realizes what he's caused, it's too late. Peony smirks as his partner Pokemon smashes into the terminal. He may have lost the battle, but he was about to come out on top in the end. The group continues attacking, but this time, the attacks seem to be doing a lot more. Eternatus begins slowing down, and its attacks get slightly weaker. Eventually, it looks like it's getting exhausted. Not wanting to waste any more time, the group goes for one final push. Thunderbolt! Pyro Ball, Wicked Blow, Psy Strike, Behemoth Blade, and Behemoth Bash all strike. And finally, Eternamax Eternatus is felled. Like every other Dynamaxed Pokemon they've seen, the energy explodes. But Eternatus doesn't revert from its Eternamax state. Curiously, Goh pulls out a Pokeball, wondering if it was possible to catch it. As if answering his question, his Pokeball is enveloped in Dynamax energy, transforming it to be far bigger than either could have anticipated. Both boys have to hold on to the ball. They look at each other, before heaving the ball and throwing it together with all their might. The massive ball opens, and Eternamax Eternatus is pulled into it. It crashes to the ground, violently shaking a bit, before it shrinks. With a click, Eternatus is caught. The two boys take a moment to process, before they both immediately cheer in delight. Sure enough, Eternatus was caught. There was nothing causing the darkest day anymore. All around them, they could see Dynamax energy disappearing. Across Galar, the random Dynamax and Gigantamax Pokemon revert back to normal. The sky clears, revealing the shining sun. On the ground, Mustard and Project Mew are able to defeat the last of the Rocket Grunts. Back in Wyndon, backup has finally arrived. With Alistair and Gordy being the gym leaders able to arrive on the scene and help the people. As the darkest day ends, so do Team Rocket's plans. Finally, when Rose sees this, he gives up hope. His dreams and goals at an end. He collapses, only to be caught by his brother Peony. Rose mutters about it being over, to which Peony nods, before looking up with a smile. Up top, Ash raises a fist to Goh, catching him off guard. However, Goh smiles, before fist bumping Ash. The two had done it. Zacian and Zamazenta look between each other, before placing their weapons on the ground and leaping away, disappearing from the view of the duo. Ash and Goh take up the Sword and Shield, wondering why the legends left them behind. Still, they choose to pocket them for now, planning to return them later. Mewtwo gets Ash's attention. Ash thanks the legendary Pokemon, but Mewtwo states that there was another reason he chose to fight by Ash's side. The genetic Pokemon admits that the young man is the only human he respects. They have met countless times now, and Ash seems to always surprise him. Now, with Ash having been the one to free him from Giovanni's control, Mewtwo was also in debt to him. With a wave of psychic energy, the Master Ball, which originally caught Mewtwo, floats over, being placed in Ash's hand. Mewtwo then tells him that he will be at Ash's service. Ash doesn't know what to say at first. However, after thinking about it a bit, he tosses the ball into the air, before Pikachu destroys it with Iron Tail. This leaves Mewtwo and Goh both lost as to why Ash did this. But with a smile, Ash tells Mewtwo that they don't need the Master Ball in order to be friends. Mewtwo smiles at this, before giving the two Mega Stones to him, saying those will be a token of their friendship then. The two then say their goodbyes, Mewtwo teleporting away. Goh can only watch all of this take place, also gaining newfound respect for Ash. With the Galar police and gym leaders now able to assist, the Rocket members occupying Hammerlock and Winden are arrested en masse. Unfortunately, there are still plenty who have managed to get away. The people closest to Giovanni being the executives and Matori herself are nowhere to be found. Giovanni's own whereabouts are also unknown. Officer Jenny makes a call, informing the international police of the current situation. She is informed that they'll have their top agent on the case, a man currently residing in Kalos, as the head of his own bureau. In the meantime, they'll also work on locating and storming the different rocket bases. Officer Jenny smiles, saying she might be able to get a lead on some of those locations, but she has to get back to them on that. Jenny ends the communication, before approaching the former Rocket Trio. The trio supposes that they're under arrest for their affiliation with a criminal organization. Jenny says that that would normally be the case. However, the three of them may have some information that the police will need. If they cooperate and willingly help with the investigation, it is possible that the charges against them will be waived. The trio immediately agrees, saying they'll do whatever they can to assist the police. Jenny smirks, saying that's good. After all, what would she listen to if her favorite radio show hosts were in prison? The trio exchange baffled looks, as Officer Jenny walks away. Meanwhile, the people that had sought shelter in the Pokemon Center were now able to leave. The woman, whom Chloe and Dawn saved the child of, profusely thanks them. Cerise then comes up to his daughter, giving her a pat on the back to show his pride in her. She asks if they'll be okay, to which Cerise nods. He says it'll take a little time, but eventually, the Galar region will heal from this. They'll have to rebuild, but now they could truly look forward to a bright future. Chloe smiles, saying he's right. They then join everyone in Galar, as they all watch the sun rise, ending Galar's darkest day.